Hello. Yeah, I started a stream. It wasn't working. So sorry. I said I was going to stream at 3:15. It's well after 3:15 now. So 3:28 in the afternoon on April 21st. A lot is going on in the world. Um, this past week, well, as of Friday, the first criminal trial for former President Trump has completed its selection of a jury, 12 jurors and 6 alternates, which is kind of unusual. I think that's the first time I've ever heard of 6 alternates. Most jury trials, there's 2 alternates. I think I've heard as many as 4 in the past, but 6 alternates is rather high. They want to be sure that they have this covered. And there were a couple snafus. I think I heard of 2 jurors being dismissed after they were already selected. They replaced those already, I guess, because they have 12 jurors and still 6 alternates. Yeah, there was, I don't know what the story was. One woman sort of was freaked out by the whole thing, basically, and said she was afraid that her identity was already revealed, and that she was very afraid she was going to start getting threats. Her family was going to start getting threats, and she just couldn't handle the pressure. Then there was another guy. I heard word, I don't know if it was fully confirmed, that he had a history of ripping down political posters in Westchester County a few years previously. I don't know if that's confirmed, but he was excused as well. There was some sort of issue, or I think about bias there with him. Um, the genocide in Gaza continues. Um, well over 34,000 civilians, Palestinian civilians in Gaza have been slaughtered. Half of those are children. This has all come about, including an actual IDF invasion of the Gaza Strip as a as a response of the terrible terrorist attack of October 7th, initiated by Hamas fighters. Um, Approximately 1,200 Israelis were killed in that, and now we're looking at well over 34,000 Palestinian civilians slaughtered, which is collective punishment. And essentially, in a small area like Gaza, they're decimating entire families, destroying complete entire neighborhoods. This is genocide. Um, and the U.S. House of Representatives, as of yesterday, Saturday, approved additional military aid to Israel. So our government is continuing to materially support um, genocide. Let me see. The A lot of activists are calling people at this point to call the White House comment line, because this spending package is most likely going to be easily passed in the Senate, and then it comes before Biden for him to sign it into law. And it's expected he will sign it into law, but we need to make this as difficult for him as possible. So what many people are calling for is to call the White House comment line and say that you voted for him 2020, but you will be staying home in November of this year and not voting for him if he does not stop funding, financially supporting genocide in the Gaza Strip. The phone number for the White House comment line is 202-456-1111. Say which state you're from, and saying that if Joe Biden does not stop materially supporting this ongoing genocide against the people in Gaza, you will stay home in November and not vote. Um, at Columbia University, Upper West Side of Manhattan, there is a major protest encampment in the heart, I think the main quad area of Columbia. As I understand it, over approximately, or maybe a little over 100 students were arrested yesterday. The police came in, used some force, tried to shut down the encampment, tried to remove tents and so forth. So there was some violence used. About 100 students were arrested yesterday. But as I understand, the encampment continues, and a small handful of additional student protesters were arrested this morning. Um, the campus buildings are all sealed off. Like key cards to get into the building are not working. You just swipe them; they're not working for students or faculty. Nobody can get in or out of the well, I guess in mainly into any of the buildings on the main campus, which is Upper West Side of Manhattan at this point. Um, Other colleges and universities in the area are doing solidarity actions and helping to support the students. I heard of Barnard students coming over and bringing food and water to those that are remaining in the encampment um, in solidarity with the Gazans who are suffering genocide currently. Um, so yeah, I have an update from my friend in Gaza, Isra Mohammed Jamal, talking about um, what they're forced to eat. I mean, there's starvation now, so what people are forced to eat is contaminated and no good, making people very sick. The water is most definitely contaminated, making people very sick. So she has a report here about that. Let's see. This is Isra Muhammad Jamal, a mother of two, a wife, and a writer for the organization I talked about last time, We Are Not Numbers. Here's her most recent report.
Our food is unhealthy at all. All our food is depending on canned food, which we get from the organizations which supporting us. They bring food, canned food from the out of Gaza, beans, shortcut white beans, and all type of beans. Because I concentrated on this type of food for a long time, I had a stomach ache. Um, but I went to a hospital 2 times. They didn't tell me what is exactly my stomach. They gave me medicine which reduced my pain, and they told me that you have to make a gastroscope to discover what is the problem in your stomach. Um, we don't have the equipment that allow us to make this or to do this for you. You have to wait after the war. And of course, we don't know when this war will end. Meat, chicken, fish, all these things, it's hardly to find them. And they are, if you find them, they are very, very expensive. Uh, most people can't buy it or buy these things. Vegetables, um, vegetables are very expensive. um, Most of them are not good enough for eating because they waited for a long time on the crossing till the Israelis allow them to come to Gaza. So they when they arrived, they arrived not good at all.
So that's the report, most recent report from my friend Isra Muhammad Jamal. Her and her family are at the Rafah border right now. She also informed me that they were successful in their GoFundMe campaign they had. And so now she's raised enough money for her and her family to be able to cross the border crossing in Rafah, which is right there, to go into Egypt. So that's a little bit of good news. But she describes there how the food is absolutely no good and the water is completely contaminated in Gaza. Um, yeah, I mean, this might be an issue that costs Joe Biden his reelection. Um, Poll numbers I'm seeing is 60 to 65, depending on which poll you have, it's varying 60 to 65% of Americans against sending Israel additional weapons at this point. And those 34 and younger, um, the opposition to sending Israel more weapons is closer to 80 to 85%. Again, depending on which poll, but it's sort of in that range. Yeah, I mean, and yet, it passes the House pretty easily. Um, 37 Democrats voted against it, and joined by 21 right-wing Republicans who voted against it. I think they had a bigger issue with the Ukraine package that was included in this sort of omnibus spending bill. It was military aid for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan all sort of wrapped up together. I personally am not really supportive of sending military aid to Taiwan either. Um, I mean, we're going to have to eventually face the music on Taiwan. Um, I'm not happy about it, but the fact of the matter is, Taiwan is this tiny little island, which is technically really part of China. So going to war with China is not worth it over Taiwan. Just like, in a way, I'm okay with maybe sending some support to Ukraine still, but in the end, that war can't go on forever against Russia. And, you know, Ukraine and Russia are going to have to find a way to negotiate, and that will most likely mean giving up some territory to Russia. And parts of Russia, the people are largely ethnically Russian in certain areas, such as Crimea, which Russia most certainly does not want to ever give back. Majority of the people in Crimea speak Russian and are basically ethnically Russian. That's something that's not talked about in the media. Again, it was an aggressive move by Putin, but at this point, there has to be sort of negotiated end to this. It can't go on forever. As with, but contrary, in different, very, very different than that, is Israel has waged an aggressive campaign of genocide and collective punishment against the people of Gaza because of a horrible one attack, October 7th, on civilians in Israel. And so now you decide to do collective punishment and basically wipe out an entire population in the Gaza Strip. So that's where we are in the world. Not real happy what I'm talking about. As with the news, is often not good news, but there are things people can do to make the world better. In our neighborhoods, in our schools, organize. We're going to have to struggle to make the world a better place, and I think it is possible. Thank you for joining me. It's a really cloudy day here in DC. Maybe it's a nicer day where you are. It's also kind of cold, but I'll be doing this sort of Sunday afternoon chat. I mean, last week I did it around 12:15. I was definitely a lot later this time. Probably somewhere between 12:15 and 3:15, somewhere in that range. I'm to aim for every week. So check out my channel and my Facebook page. I'll do like sort of a heads up an hour or 2 hours before. But yeah, you can sort of count on me for that Sunday afternoon chat. And then on Wednesdays, as it's in the evening, later in the evening, I do a Wednesday night roundup around 9 or 9:15 in the evening around that time. Okay. And then I'll be sort of just covering several news items for the week, some that are particularly interesting or some that were, I think, underreported in the mainstream